What's up guys, Justin here, back at the Cage JSA. I'm the strength and strongman coach here. Today we're going to go over the yoke for a Strongman Technique video. So footwear, breathing, bracing, all that stuff, programming as well. So stay tuned if you want to learn about the yoke, and we'll get into the technique right after this. Alright guys, so first thing I want to go over is footwear for this. So me personally, I like these Merrell hiking shoes. These are the Chameleons. Nice solid sole, really sticky Vibram stuff, very comfortable and not a lot of give to them, so no squishiness to them, just like we would on any other event, whether it be overhead or a deadlift or something like that. If you're going to wear shoes, you want something nice and solid, that's not going to be squishy, so you don't feel like you're walking on balloons, okay? Especially with the yoke, as you get heavier and heavier, the yoke is going to be pushing you down more and more, so the less compression you get on the sole of your shoe, the better, more stable you're going to be. So something like this, hiking shoes. I've seen people wear like the indoor soccer, the Samba shoes. Any of that stuff would be appropriate and great for yoke. So get your footwear right first. Let's get into the technique on this. Alright guys, so first things first, bar height on here. So when we pick the yoke up, we want probably between 4 and 6 inches of clearance off the ground. Any higher than that and the bar is going to be too low, we're going to have to squat down too far at the start to pick the yoke up off the ground, which as the weights get heavier, 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100 pounds, you want to be picking up straight up as little as possible, okay? We're not turning this into a squat, so we want to have the bar somewhere, usually for most people about mid-chest, so like right above nipple height or so, is going to give you a good starting point to get the skis of the yoke about 4 to 6 inches off the ground. We also don't want it too low when we pick it up, because if there's any kind of shaking, you're going to hit the yoke on the ground, which is going to screw you up as far as your walking position wise. It might kind of get you out of position. One side jams in the ground, one side doesn't. So you want enough clearance that it's not going to hit the ground when it swings, but you don't want too much clearance that we have to do a full squat to get the bar, or the yoke skis off the ground. Okay, so next we're going to go over foot position. Alright guys, so foot position. So when we pick the yoke up, we want to be as close to our walking position as possible, okay? So walking position for a yoke, we want to try to have our feet directly under our hips. That's going to be the most stable position, and it's also going to be our strongest position, okay? Everything is in a nice straight line. What we don't want to do is pick the yoke up way too wide and then kind of start wobbling with it, okay? What we can do is we pick the yoke up slightly wider than our stance, okay? So we're up, and then our first couple of steps will be to bring it in closer, okay? If we stay out with that wide stance like this, and we try to walk from here, what happens is we end up going side to side. So the yoke is gonna wobble on us this way, back and forth, okay? That's not what we want, obviously. It's going to take a lot of energy wobbling like this to try to keep it straight and go fast with it as well. Remember, this is a timed event usually. It's usually for speed, so we want to be as fast as possible. So if we can get that pick right in our stance, as soon as we pick that up in our stable, we can get right into walking with it, okay? If we're out here, our first couple of steps have to be to bring our feet back together. It's going to waste a little bit of time. And like I said, if you keep your feet out here, you're going to be wobbling back and forth, and that's going to take a lot of energy to get the yoke to the end of the finish line. So next thing is bar position on our back, okay? We'll go over that next. Okay, so bar position. Think of this like a high bar squat, okay? We're going to want to have it nice and high without being directly on top of our spine, obviously. This bone right here, if you can feel that on yourself, if you're not, right there, that's not where we want it. We want it just below that, okay? So it's going to be across our shoulders, up as high as we can get it without being right on top of our spine, okay? If we try to do a low bar position, like down here, what's going to happen is as the weights get heavier, you're going to see it's already sliding off of my back, okay? So we're going to stay nice and high with it, okay? Get into a nice position where you're nice and high here, okay? And then also hand position. So with the bar nice and high across our back, we want our hands in a good position where we can keep our elbows up nice and high. That's going to create a nice shelf for the yoke to sit on so that doesn't slide off of our back. Depending on the yoke design, we can keep our hands nice and high. On this one, this rogue yoke, I prefer to put my hands on the actual uprights a little bit lower. I feel more stable this way, and also for some reason this one has big cutouts here, and I like to push out on the yoke, and these, especially when it gets heavier and I'm really pushing on this, these really dig into my hands really badly. So I've tried doing it this way. I actually feel a bit more stable here. One thing on a yoke like this that's adjustable, don't put your hands right under here like this, because as you drop it, you're going to pinch the shit out of your hand. Okay, this moves a little bit up and down as we go. Okay, so nice and high on our shoulders, like a high bar squat. Hands are going to be grabbing the uprights. That's the most stable way. You can grab here if your arms are too short to grab the uprights of the yoke, but this is not going to be as stable as grabbing the uprights. You're going to have a lot more swing back and forth with this, grabbing here instead of grabbing the uprights. When you grab the uprights, there's a couple different things you can do. Like I said before, I push out, so I grab and kind of push out and forward a little bit, like this, kind of like, out and forward this way. I find for me, that keeps me the most stable, my upper back very tight so that I don't lose the yoke off my back. As well as kind of when it pushes forward, it'll give me a little bit of momentum to go a little bit faster forward. The other way that you can do it is grab, this works probably better if you have a little bit longer arms. I've tried this way before. I don't feel as stable for myself, so try both ways and see what works for you. You can grab and pull in, okay? So you're kind of pulling in, keeping those elbows nice and high, that back tight. Like I said, this might be better if you have longer arms. You can kind of pull in and keep tight. I like to push out, same idea, okay? So either one of those two, either pushing out, pulling in. The main thing is to keep it nice and high on your back, keep those elbows up and your back nice and tight so that the yoke isn't going to slide off your back, and it's not going to fumble around side to side when you're grabbing onto the uprights, okay? Now we're going to go over the actual walking and how to take your breath and all that stuff on here as well. So let's get into that. All right, so breathing wise on the yoke, I've seen a lot of people recommend holding your breath the whole way. If you can, I guess that's good. I wouldn't recommend that myself. I've never really done that before. What you want is your core tight, obviously, but you want to still be able to breathe. Maybe it's going to be short, choppy breaths, but especially if it's a longer yoke and it's going to be taking you more time, you're going to want to be able to breathe. If it's a really short speed thing and you think you can hold your breath the whole time, I can see how that would maybe help you out. It's going to be definitely less than 10 to 12 seconds. Or if it's a short distance, that could be helpful. But as far as breathing wise, same thing that you would do on a squat kind of to get it out, okay? So we're here. I'm gonna take a nice big breath before we stand up. And then from there, what I usually do, push out. So I'm pushing out on the stomach, got air in my back here, okay? And then it's like short locomotive breath. So in and out, really short, stiff breath. So you're not standing up. Kind of, okay. You want to be able to keep everything tight. You also want to be able to breathe so you don't pass out. One other thing, as far as the walking wise, especially when you're starting out, think about going heel toe, or maybe just a smidge farther as far as your width of your stance, okay? So, kind of here. All right, we don't want to try to take too big of a step and make it into like a lunge. Also, make sure you're stable before you stand up. especially, like I said, when you're just starting out, get yourself set, stable, especially in training. I see a lot of people trying to go too fast. If you try to start too fast, that's when the yoke is going to start swinging like crazy on you. Okay, so stand up. Make sure you're stable and then start. Okay, you're not going here. Okay, let's see how the yoke kind of moves a little bit more on me. Once you get used to the yoke, you can actually start in a stagger stance, especially on something lighter. And then that way, when you pick it up, you are into your stance already. But that's a little bit more advanced thing. You want to try once you're used to the yoke and the feel of it, how it swings and all that stuff. As far as the actual steps, we want to be kind of almost sliding. Okay, so we're not like picking our feet up super high. That, again, that's the same thing as being really wide. You're going to end up being off balance, okay? What you want to think about almost is kind of pulling with your front foot, okay? Keeping your glutes tight the whole time. As you get better with the yoke, obviously you can open your stride up a bit and kind of try to run with it. At the beginning, like I said, I would stick to the heel toe and kind of think about pulling yourself forward with that front foot. You're still pushing off of the back one, but use the front one as well. It's going to keep your glutes tighter and give you more stability and more strength with the yoke. Okay, so let's do a little bit on programming wise for the yoke. As I said earlier in the video, yoke is usually for speed or a timed event. So you want to try to go as fast as possible. That's pretty much how I train it. So we want to keep the weights a little bit lighter and work on speed. Especially once we start getting really heavy on this, this is probably by far the most taxing strongman event that you can do, especially if you do it every week. If you're trying to do it heavy all the time, it's not going to really work out for you very well. What I like to do is set a distance, whether it's 50 feet, 80 feet, 100, even, whatever this distance is for your competition. Set a goal as far as the time wise. So say 50 feet in 10 seconds, and then use a weight that's appropriate for you to get that time continuously or consistently. So what we want to do is train that speed until you can do that easily, and then move up in the weight a little bit. You don't want to go heavy all the time. We're working speed on this, okay? So something like 60-ish% of your best yoke for multiple sets of speed work. And I wouldn't do it every week either. You could alternate with farmers or a different carry. Most of your training on the yoke should be in that speed range, somewhere between 60 and 80-ish% for time. That's going to give you the best bang for your buck. You're going to be able to do it a little bit more often, and you're not going to get as beat up. Obviously, if you have a heavy yoke, you're going to have to train it heavy, especially if it's heavier than you've done before. Put those in like once a month or so, and continue doing your speed work. So if you're doing, if you're doing every other week, so that's 2 yoke sessions a month. Do 1 speed with a little bit of volume, and then 1 heavy one with very low volume, maybe 2 runs, maybe 3. The speed work could be more like 5 to 8 runs in that range somewhere with short rest. So you're building volume in and you're working that speed. As soon as you get to the point where you're not hitting that number that you want anymore as far as the time wise, then your day is over with the yoke. Okay, so I think that protocol will help you guys out a lot. I see a lot of people trying to go super heavy with this every week. I was one of them for a while, so I know how taxing and beat up you can get trying to do 800 plus yoke every single week. It's just not sustainable. So doing something a bit more conservative with speed work and working on, like I said, trying to stay in a certain time frame for a certain distance, and that's really what you're training. You really want to go as fast as possible. A lot of the yoke events are, hundreds of seconds are separating 1st to 5th place, and I've been in a couple of competitions where that was the case. So speed is very important. And the ability to be able to train the yoke consistently without being terribly beat up is going to be very, very beneficial the more time you can get under it. And that becomes something that you have to do a little bit lighter, okay? So you're not going to be able to do, like I said, 800-pound yoke every week for 6 months. But you will be able to do 400-pound yoke every other week for speed work and going up, 20 pounds or so every time you get past that speed barrier. So a little tip on technique there. Obviously, you can wear a belt on this, just a regular belt like any you would use for squats or anything like that. Really learn how to use that belt and brace, especially as the weights get heavier. I would suggest doing as much work as you can with without the belt, just to build up your core a bit. But once you start getting to something that's you're a little nervous about, that's super heavy, wear the belt. It's going to help you, not only help you be stronger on the yoke, but also help protect you until you build up those muscles. Couple things too, if you don't have a yoke, you can build what's called a chain yoke. So basically take an axle and attach chains to it and attach either loading pins or kegs or something like that, and do it that way. That's going to really, really build your stability on the yoke, because as you walk, obviously the chains are way, way less stable than something like this. That would be a good way to train it. If you don't have access to a yoke and you do have access to an axle, you could even use a safety squat bar if you're just in a regular powerlifting gym, and just use the chain attachments and load a bunch of chains on there. That would work. Or like I said, load a couple loading pins with some plates on there, and do some walks with that, and really try to keep that core tight and keep everything nice and strong. And that's going to really help build up your yoke. So I hope that you guys got some info out of here that was helpful. And I'm going to be doing more of these. So if you like the content, please share the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment below and let me know what else you guys want to see on this channel. Whether it's training, nutrition, anything. Whether it's me doing something besides training, let me know. So I will see you guys on the next one. Until then, work hard, be fucking great. See you guys later.